Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab. Now, let's begin. The fluorescent lights hummed their eternal song in the ER at County General, a soundtrack Jesse Rankin had grown accustomed to over his 12 years as an emergency physician. At 41, he'd seen enough trauma, enough desperate families, enough close calls to have developed what his colleagues called control detachment, the ability to care deeply while keeping his hands steady and his mind clear. Tonight started like any other Thursday shift. A construction worker with a compound fracture. A teenager who'd overdosed at a party. An elderly woman with chest pain that turned out to be anxiety. Jesse moved through the chaos with practiced efficiency, his tall frame and calm demeanor a steadying presence for both patients and staff. Dr. Rankin, incoming, the nurse called out. Unconscious female, 18 years old. Jesse glanced at the board, already mentally running through differential diagnoses. Loss of consciousness in a young adult, seizure, drug overdose, cardiac arrhythmia, stroke, though that last one was rare at that age. He stepped toward the ambulance bay, pulling on fresh gloves. The automatic doors parted, and the world tilted on its axis. The paramedics wheeled in a gurney, but Jesse's eyes locked onto the patient's face. Pale, slack, her dark hair splayed across the white sheet. Hannah. His Hannah. Jesus Christ, he breathed, his professional composure shattering like glass. He lunged forward, his hands already reaching for her wrist to check her pulse. 70 beats per minute. Thready but present. Hannah. Hannah, can you hear me? His voice cracked, all those years of training evaporating in an instant. Dr. Rankin, the paramedic started to brief him, but Jesse wasn't listening. Behind the gurney, wringing his hands with theatrical nervousness, stood Saul McGee, Jesse's father-in-law. The man's face was flushed, sweat beading on his forehead, despite the cool November air outside. Jesse, thank God you're here, Saul said, his voice quavering. She just fainted at dinner. 1 minute she was fine, the next she collapsed. I didn't know what else to do. I brought her straight here. Jesse's mind spun. Hannah was a freshman at State College, living in the dorms. Why had she been at Saul's house? She usually came home on weekends, not Thursday nights. But those questions could wait. Get her into trauma too, Jesse ordered, his doctor's instinct taking over. He gripped the side rail of the gurney as they rushed down the corridor. I need a CBC, chem panel, tox screen, EKG, and let's get in 4-star with normal saline. Wide open. A hand caught his arm. Dr. Elizabeth Chapman, his colleague and friend of 8 years, held him back with surprising strength for her slight frame. Jesse, stop. Elizabeth, that's my daughter. I know, which is exactly why you can't treat her. Her gray eyes were steady behind her glasses, sympathetic but firm. Hospital policy. You know this. What policy? Jesse. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. The gurney was already disappearing into the trauma bay, nurses swarming around Hannah. You can't be objective. You'll second-guess every decision. Let me handle this. I'll take good care of her, I promise. His jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. She was right. Of course she was right. But every instinct screamed at him to be in that room, to be the one checking her vitals, starting her figuring out what was wrong. I need to be with her, he said, hating how helpless he sounded. Family waiting area. I'll update you every step of the way. Elizabeth squeezed his shoulder. Go. He wanted to argue, to pull rank, to do something, but Saul was already tugging at his elbow. Come on, son. Let them work. She's in good hands. Jesse let himself be led to the waiting area, a claustrophobic room with mauve chairs and years-old magazines. The fluorescent lights here buzzed differently, higher-pitched, like a warning. Saul collapsed into a chair, burying his face in his hands. Jesse remained standing, his fists clenched, staring at the double doors that separated him from his daughter. What happened? Jesse demanded. Why was she at your house? Saul looked up, and Jesse noticed for the first time how much older his father-in-law looked. At 68, Saul had always been robust, a former high school football coach who still projected vitality. But tonight, his skin had a grayish pallor, deep lines etched around his mouth. She called this afternoon, Saul said. Said she wasn't feeling well, I've been tired lately. Your mother-in-law thought it might be mono or something going around campus. Louise made her favorite pot roast. We wanted to fatten her up a bit. He attempted a weak smile. You know how Louise worries. Jesse did know. Louise McGee had always been the nurturing type, constantly pressing food on everyone, fretting over perceived weight loss or paleness. When Jesse had married Sally 10 years ago, Louise had welcomed him into the family with open arms and approximately 10,000 casseroles. She's been tired. Jesse's mind clicked through possibilities. Mononucleosis was common in college, but sudden loss of consciousness? That didn't fit. The past few weeks, she said, thought it was just stress from midterms. Saul's hands trembled. God, Jesse, I should have brought her in sooner. If something happens to her, nothing's going to happen to her, Jesse said, trying to convince himself as much as Saul. Elizabeth is excellent. They'll figure it out. But uncertainty gnawed at him. Hannah had seemed fine when he'd seen her last weekend. They'd gone to lunch at her favorite Thai place, and she'd talked excitedly about her biology class, her new roommate, the guy from her English seminar who'd asked her out. She'd been vibrant, healthy, laughing at his terrible jokes. Had there been something he'd missed? He replayed the lunch in his mind, searching for clues. She'd picked at her pad thai, he remembered, said she wasn't that hungry. He chalked it up to eating dorm food constantly. And she'd seemed pale, maybe, but the restaurant had dim lighting. Christ, had he missed signs that his own daughter was sick? 20 minutes crawl by like hours. Jesse paced. Saul made phone calls, first to Louise, his wife, who apparently was at some church function. Then to Sally. Jesse's phone buzzed. Sally's name lit up the screen. What the hell is going on? She said without preamble. Dad just called. He said Hannah collapsed. I'm at the hospital. She's being examined now. I'm coming. The line went dead. Jesse stared at his phone. Sally worked as a pharmaceutical sales rep, and her territory covered 3 states. She'd been in Ohio this week. Or was it Indiana? He lost track. They'd been married for 10 years, but the past 2 had been strained. Not fighting exactly, just distant. Ships passing. They'd stopped going to bed at the same time. Stop finishing each other's sentences. Stop a lot of things. Maybe it was inevitable. His ER shifts. Her constant travel. Hannah growing up and pulling away, as teenagers do. Or maybe there was more to it than that. The double doors swung open, and Elizabeth emerged, pulling off her gloves. Her expression was carefully neutral, her professional face. Jesse's heart stuttered. How is she? Stable. Conscious now. Vitals are normalizing. Elizabeth gestured for him to follow her a few steps away from Saul. Jesse, we need to talk. What is it? What's wrong with her? Elizabeth glanced back at Saul, then lowered her voice further. Preliminary blood work shows signs of anemia. Her white blood cell count is slightly elevated. But that's not what concerns me. Then what? When I was examining her, I noticed something. Her fingernails. Elizabeth paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. Jesse, I need you to look at them. But I need you to look as a doctor, not as her father. Can you do that? Dread pooled in his stomach. Show me. They walked into the trauma bay together. Hannah was propped up on the bed, looking small and vulnerable in the hospital gown. Her eyes were open but unfocused, probably from whatever medication they'd given her. And 4 line ran in her left arm. Hey, Dad, she murmured, attempting a smile. Hey, sweetheart. He kept his voice steady, casual, as he approached the bed. Gave us quite a scare. Sorry. I feel really stupid. Don't. These things happen. He pulled up a stool, sitting beside her. Dr. Chapman says you're doing better. Yeah. I just got really dizzy all of a sudden. Everything went black. Jesse picked up her right hand, ostensibly to pat it reassuringly, but his eyes went to her fingernails. At first, he saw nothing unusual. Then Elizabeth turned up the overhead light, and he saw them. White horizontal lines across each nail bed. These lines. His blood turned to ice. He'd seen these before. Once, during his residency, on a patient who'd attempted suicide with rat poison. And once in a medical journal, in an article about chronic arsenic exposure. He set Hannah's hand down gently, fighting to keep his expression neutral. Elizabeth, can I see you outside for a moment? In the hallway, he grabbed her arm. Arsenic. Her face confirmed what he already knew. It could be, or thallium, some other heavy metal. I've already sent blood and urine samples to the lab for analysis, but those tests take time. 24 to 48 hours for a full toxicology panel. Jesus. Jesse's mind reeled. Arsenic poisoning. Chronic exposure would explain the fatigue, the anemia, the fainting. How long? How long has she been exposed? Based on where the lines are on the nail bed and assuming normal nail growth rate, several weeks. Maybe longer. Weeks. The word felt like ash in his mouth. Someone's been poisoning my daughter for weeks. We don't know that, Elizabeth said quickly. There could be environmental exposure. Old pipes, contaminated water, workplace hazard. She lives in a dorm. She's 18. Where would she be exposed to arsenic? But even as he said it, a memory surfaced. Hannah, at lunch last weekend, mentioning that she'd been eating dinner at Grandpa Saul's house a lot lately. That Grandma Louise had been teaching her to make the family recipes. His gaze drifted to the waiting room, where Saul sat with his head bowed, looking every inch the worried grandfather. Saul, who'd been the one to bring her in tonight. Saul, at whose house she'd been eating. No, that was insane. Saul loved Hannah. He'd been there when she was born, had coached her in softball, had saved for her college fund. But the evidence was right there, literally written in her fingernails. I need to admit her, Elizabeth said. Start chelation therapy, get those levels down. And Jesse, she met his eyes. I have to report this. If there's been intentional poisoning, it's a criminal matter. I know. His voice sounded distant to his own ears. Do what you need to do. You should step outside. Let me handle the admission. You're too close to this. He wanted to refuse, but she was right again. He was too close. Way too close. And if someone was poisoning Hannah, if someone had been slowly killing his daughter for weeks, he couldn't trust his own judgment right now. Jesse walked back into the waiting room on autopilot. Saul stood as he approached, his face hopeful and fearful all at once. Well, what did they say? Jesse studied his father-in-law's face. The worry lines, the trembling hands, the sweat on his upper lip. Was it genuine concern? Or the nerves of a guilty man? They're running more tests, Jesse said carefully. They want to keep her overnight for observation. But she's going to be okay. They think so. Saul sagged with relief, and Jesse felt a twist of guilt. But he couldn't show his hand. Not yet. Not until he knew for certain what was happening. Thank God. Louise will be so relieved. Saul pulled out his phone. I should call her back, let her know. As Saul stepped into the hallway to make his call, Jesse's own phone buzzed again. A text from Sally. Just landed. Be there in 30. He stared at the message, and a thought occurred to him that he immediately tried to suppress. But once it was there, he couldn't unthink it. Sally had been distant. Sally had been traveling constantly. Sally had encouraged Hannah to spend time with her parents. Sally, who'd taken out a life insurance policy on Hannah 2 years ago, just to be safe, she'd said. College kids do stupid things. At the time, it had seemed reasonable. Morbid, maybe, but reasonable. Now it felt like a loaded gun sitting on a table. Jesse sat down heavily in one of the mauve chairs, his mind racing through possibilities he didn't want to consider. His daughter was being poisoned. The evidence was undeniable. The question was, by whom? And why? And the darker question, the one that made him feel sick. How far did this conspiracy go? The hospital had a rhythm at 3 in the morning. Quieter than the evening rush, but never truly silent. Machines beeped. Phones rang. Code pages echoed through empty corridors. Jesse hadn't left the hospital. He'd called in sick for his shift, the first time in 5 years, and parked himself in Hannah's room. She was sleeping now, the sedatives doing their job. Her chest rose and fell with peaceful regularity, ignorant of the storm building around her. Sally had arrived around midnight, her designer luggage still in tow from her Ohio trip. She'd rushed into Hannah's room, all maternal concern and tearful embraces. To Jesse's eye, it looked genuine. But then, Sally had always been good at sales. They think she might have been exposed to some kind of toxin, Jesse had told her carefully, watching her reaction. They're running tests. Sally's face had crumpled. Oh God, like mold? Or chemicals? Is it the dorm? I knew that place looked sketchy. They don't know yet. Now Sally was asleep in the recliner beside Hannah's bed, her mouth slightly open, snoring softly. She looked exhausted, older than her 38 years. Jesse tried to remember the last time they'd been alone together, really alone. Months, maybe. He'd once loved her with an intensity that surprised him. Sally McGee had been a whirlwind when they met. Funny, ambitious, beautiful. She pursued him as aggressively as she pursued sales quotas, and he'd been flattered and charmed in equal measure. They'd married quickly. Too quickly, his friends had said. But when it's right, he'd insisted. Hannah had come along 2 years into the marriage. Sally's daughter from a previous relationship, though Jesse had never met the biological father. Hannah had been 8 when Jesse entered her life, wary and quiet. It had taken time, but she'd eventually called him dad, and he'd meant it when he said he couldn't love her more if she'd been his biological daughter. But somewhere along the way, his marriage had calcified. The warmth had leaked out, leaving behind a functional but cold partnership. Jesse's phone vibrated in his pocket. A text from Elizabeth. Lab prelims back. Come to my office. He slipped out of the room, leaving Sally and Hannah sleeping. Elizabeth's office was a cluttered sanctuary of medical journals, half-drunk coffee cups, and a fading poster of the human circulatory system. She sat behind her desk, her face grave. Sit down, Jesse. He sat. The preliminary tox screen is positive for arsenic. She slid a printout across the desk. Blood levels are elevated but not acutely toxic. This is consistent with chronic, low-level exposure over an extended period. Jesse's hands clenched into fists. Seeing it in writing made it real in a way the visual evidence hadn't. How much? How long? Based on the levels and her symptoms, I'd estimate she's been ingesting small amounts for at least 6 to 8 weeks. Maybe longer. 8 weeks. 2 months of someone slowly poisoning his daughter. Where would she get it? How? That's the question. Elizabeth leaned back in her chair. Arsenic isn't exactly lying around. Modern rat poisons don't use it anymore. You need to go out of your way to acquire it. So this was intentional. Almost certainly. I've already contacted the police. They'll want to interview Hannah when she's more alert, and they'll probably want to talk to you too. Jesse nodded, his mind already racing ahead. What about treatment? We've started chelation therapy. British anti-leucite, DMSA. If we've caught it early enough, and if the exposure stops, she should make a full recovery. But Jesse, Elizabeth hesitated. She can't go back to wherever she's been getting exposed. We need to figure out the source. I know. Do you have any idea? No, he lied. Because he did have ideas. Terrible, unthinkable ideas. Saul's house. Hannah had been eating there regularly. Sally's encouragement for Hannah to spend time with her grandparents. The life insurance policy. Sally's distance. Her frequent trips. Her preoccupation with money lately. Their mortgage was hefty, her student loans from her MBA still substantial, and her sales commission had been down this quarter. No, he couldn't jump to conclusions. He needed evidence. Real evidence. I need to go through her things, Jesse said. Her dorm room, her car. See if there's anything that might give us a clue. The police will want to do that. Then I'll go before they can stop me. Elizabeth studied him for a long moment. Jesse, I know that look. Whatever you're thinking. I'm not thinking anything. I just want to protect my daughter. Just be careful. If someone is deliberately poisoning her, they're dangerous. He stood. I'm aware. Dawn was breaking when Jesse pulled into the parking lot of Hannah's dorm, a 1970s brick monstrosity called Fletcher Hall. He'd texted Hannah's roommate, a girl named Gabriella Gould, explaining the situation. She'd responded immediately, offering to let him in. Gabriella met him at the door, her face creased with worry. She was small and energetic, with purple highlights in her dark hair and an NYU sweatshirt despite being at a state school. Is Hannah okay? Saul said she just fainted, but that seems weird. Jesse's ears pricked up. Saul? You talked to Saul? Yeah, he called me last night after he brought her to the hospital. Asked if I'd noticed anything strange with Hannah lately. Gabriella twisted her hands together. I told him she'd been really tired. Sleeping a lot. Missing classes sometimes. Did Saul call you often? Every few weeks, maybe. He's like super involved. Always checking on her, making sure she's eating right and stuff. She led Jesse up 3 flights of stairs to their room. It's sweet, actually. My grandparents never call me sweet, or controlling, or monitoring his victim. The dorm room was standard. 2 beds, 2 desks, posters on the walls, clothes on the floor. Hannah's side was neater, organized with color-coded binders and a bulletin board covered in photos. Jesse moved to her desk, opening drawers. Pens, highlighters, note cards. A bottle of ibuprofen. Vitamins. He picked these up, examining the label. Generic multivitamin, purchased at the campus pharmacy. The seal was broken, pills rattling inside. She takes those every day, Gabriella offered. Or she did. She kind of stopped the last few weeks. Said they made her nauseous. Jesse pocketed the vitamin bottle. Could be nothing. Could be everything. He searched through Hannah's closet, her backpack, under her bed. Nothing obvious. No strange packages, no mysterious pills. What about food? Jesse asked. Did she keep snacks here? Yeah, in that bin. Gabriella pointed to a plastic storage container under the bed. Jesse pulled it out. Granola bars, chips, packets of instant oatmeal, protein shakes. He picked up one of the protein shake containers. The seal was intact. The oatmeal packets looked normal. But there at the bottom of the bin was a mason jar filled with what looked like homemade trail mix, nuts, dried fruit, chocolate chips. A handwritten label read, Grandma Louise's special mix, with a little heart. Jesse's pulse quickened. He unscrewed the lid, sniffing the contents. Nothing unusual, but arsenic was odorless. Tasteless. Does she eat this? He asked Gabriella. Oh yeah, all the time. Louise makes it for her. She drops off a new jar every couple weeks when she visits. Every couple weeks. For how long? When did Louise start bringing these? Gabriella thought for a moment. September, I think. Right when school started. September. It was now mid-November. That timeline matched Elizabeth's estimate of exposure. Jesse placed the lid back on the jar and stood. I'm taking some of Hannah's things. The police might want to test them. Sure, whatever you need. Just tell Hannah I hope she feels better, okay? She's like the best roommate I've ever had. As Jesse carried the evidence to his car, his phone rang. Sally, where are you? She demanded. You just disappeared. I went to get some of Hannah's things from her dorm. Without telling me, her voice was sharp, accusatory. Jesse, that's our daughter lying in a hospital bed. You don't just leave. You were asleep. I didn't want to wake you. A pause. When Sally spoke again, her tone had shifted, softening. Sorry. I'm scared, Jesse. The doctor said something about poisoning. How does that even happen? They're still figuring it out. Do you think it's something at school? Some kind of contamination? Maybe. He unlocked his car, setting the mason jar and vitamin bottle carefully on the passenger seat. Sally, I need to ask you something. What? That life insurance policy you took out on Hannah. How much is it for? Silence. Sally, why are you asking about that right now? Just answer the question. Jesus, Jesse. It's $250,000. Same as yours. Same as mine. We took them out together 2 years ago, remember? Family planning. He did remember. Sort of. It had been Sally's idea, pushed by some insurance salesman at her company. She'd filled out all the paperwork, had him sign where she indicated. He'd barely paid attention. Who's the beneficiary? What? We are. You and me jointly. What the hell is this about? Nothing. I'm just trying to understand. Well, you're freaking me out. Our daughter is in the hospital and you're asking about insurance policies? I'll be back soon. He ended the call before she could respond further. $250,000. Split between him and Sally if Hannah died. That was a motive, especially with their financial pressures. But it wasn't enough on its own. People didn't murder for insurance payouts anymore, did they? The risk was too high, the scrutiny too intense. Unless they thought they could get away with it. Unless they were clever. Or desperate. Jesse drove to the police station, the evidence secured in evidence bags he'd grabbed from the hospital supply closet. He needed to hand this over to people who could analyze it properly. But more than that, he needed time to think. His father-in-law, Saul. His wife, Sally. His mother-in-law, Louise. One of them, or all of them, was trying to kill Hannah. The question was, how did he prove it? And more importantly, how did he stop them before they tried again? Detective Clifton Harrison was built like a linebacker and had the world-weary eyes of someone who'd seen humanity at its worst. He sat across from Jesse in a cramped interview room, the mason jar and vitamin bottle sealed in evidence bags on the table between them. "Walk me through it again," Harrison said, his pen poised over a notepad. "Your daughter was brought to the ER by your father-in-law, showing signs of arsenic poisoning." "Chronic arsenic poisoning," Jesse corrected. "Someone's been giving her small doses over weeks, maybe months. And you think it's in this trail mix? Or the vitamins? I don't know. But the trail mix was made by my mother-in-law, Louise McGee. She's been bringing Hannah a fresh jar every few weeks since September." Harrison made a note. "And the vitamins?" "Hannah bought those herself at the campus pharmacy. But she stopped taking them recently because they made her nauseous, which could be a symptom of the poisoning, not the vitamins themselves. So you think the trail mix is the delivery method?" "It makes sense." Hannah trusted her grandmother. She ate it regularly. Louise had access and opportunity. "Motive?" Jesse hesitated. "There's a life insurance policy. $250,000. Harrison's eyebrows rose. "That's substantial. It's split between me and my wife." "But," Jesse struggled with the words, "my wife is Louise's daughter. If something happened to Hannah, Sally would get half. And Sally could split it with her parents." "That's a lot of assumptions." "I know." Harrison leaned back, studying Jesse. "Here's what I see, Dr. Rankin. You got a sick daughter, some circumstantial evidence, and a theory. What I don't have is proof. These tests will take time, few days at least to get full toxicology on the food items. In the meantime, what do you want me to do? Arrest your in-laws on suspicion? I want you to investigate them. I plan to, but quietly. If they are responsible and they get spooked, they could destroy evidence. Or run." Harrison tapped his pen against the notepad. "My advice? Keep your daughter away from them. Don't let her eat anything they provide. Act normal otherwise. Let me do my job." Jesse nodded, though every instinct screamed at him to confront Saul, to demand answers, to shake the truth out of him. "One more thing," Harrison said. "You mentioned your wife has been distant lately, traveling a lot for work." "Yes." "Where was she when your daughter collapsed last night?" Jesse's mouth went dry. "Ohio. Or Indiana. I'm not sure." "You're not sure where your wife was?" "She travels for work. Pharmaceutical sales." "Uh-huh." Harrison made another note, and Jesse didn't like the expression on his face. "Dr. Rankin, I have to ask, where were you last night? Before your daughter was brought in? Are you serious?" "I was working. At the hospital. There are logs, cameras, a dozen witnesses. Just covering all bases." Harrison held up his hands. "In cases like this, we look at everyone. Family members first." Jesse stood abruptly. "I'm not poisoning my daughter, Detective. I'm trying to save her." "I believe you. Sit down." Reluctantly, Jesse sat. "Here's the reality," Harrison said. "Poisoning cases are a nightmare. They're hard to prove, hard to prosecute. Even if we find arsenic in that trail mix, we have to prove who put it there, when, and with what intent. Your mother-in-law could claim contamination, accident, ignorance. Unless we catch someone in the act or get a confession, this could drag on for months. My daughter almost died. I know, and I'm going to do everything I can. But I need you to be smart about this. Don't go vigilante on me. Don't confront anyone. Let the evidence speak." Jesse left the station feeling worse than when he'd arrived. Detective Harrison was right. Proving this would be nearly impossible. And in the meantime, whoever was poisoning Hannah wouldn't know the net was closing. They'd either stop and lay low, or they'd accelerate their plan. Unless Jesse could somehow force their hand. An idea was forming, dark and risky. He needed to think it through carefully. But if the police couldn't get justice, maybe he could. Not through the system, but around it. He'd spent 12 years in emergency medicine learning how to save lives. Maybe it was time to learn how to destroy one. His phone buzzed. A text from Sally. "Doctor says Hannah can come home tomorrow." Thank God. Jesse stared at the message, and his blood ran cold. Home. Their home. Where Sally could monitor Hannah's food, her medicine, everything she consumed. He typed back, "Let's keep her in the hospital a few more days. Just to be safe." Sally's response came quickly. The insurance won't cover it. She's stable. She needs to come home. Always back to money with Sally. Always back to insurance and coverage and costs. Jesse made a decision. Hannah wasn't going home. She was going somewhere safe. Somewhere he could control every variable. And while she recovered, he'd set a trap for the people who'd tried to kill her. A trap baited with something they couldn't resist. Opportunity. They wanted Hannah dead for insurance money? Fine. Jesse would give them a reason to try again. And this time, he'd be watching. This time, they'd get caught. And when they did, Jesse would make sure they paid. Not with jail time. That was too uncertain, too slow. No, he'd make them pay in a way that was poetic, fitting, permanent. After all, he was a doctor. He knew exactly how the human body could fail, and exactly how to make it look like natural causes. Hannah was discharged on Saturday morning against medical advice. Elizabeth had argued strenuously for keeping her longer, but Sally had been insistent, and Hannah herself wanted to leave. "I feel fine, Dad," she'd said. "Hospitals are depressing." Jesse had reluctantly agreed, but with conditions. Hannah wouldn't return to her dorm. She'd stay at the house, where he could watch her. He'd taken a week off work, emergency family leave. Sally had protested that she could care for Hannah, but Jesse had been firm. "You need to work," he'd said. "You've got that pharmaceutical conference in Texas next week. How about the time banked? Let me handle this." Sally had relented, though her expression suggested she wasn't happy about it. Now, Sunday afternoon, Jesse sat in his home office with the door locked, his laptop open to a private browsing window. He'd been researching for hours. Arsenic, its sources, its symptoms, its detection. But more importantly, he'd been researching Louise and Saul McGee. What he'd found was illuminating. Saul had been a high school football coach for 30 years before retiring 5 years ago. But retirement hadn't been voluntary. There'd been an incident, allegations of financial impropriety involving the Booster Club funds. Nothing was ever proven, but Saul had been quietly pushed out with a modest pension. Since then, finances had been tight for the McGees. Louise worked part-time at a church thrift store, barely minimum wage. Their house, a modest ranch in an aging subdivision, had been refinanced twice. They drove a 15-year-old sedan. Jesse pulled up their credit report. He'd used his hospital credentials and a little social engineering to access it through a financial background check service. The report painted a grim picture. 3 maxed-out credit cards. A home equity line of credit tapped to its limit. Medical bills and collections, probably from Louise's hip replacement surgery 2 years ago. They were drowning in debt. Desperate. And desperation made people do terrible things. But Sally? She had her own money, her own income. Why would she be involved? Jesse clicked through to Sally's bank statements. He'd set up their accounts years ago with joint access, though they drifted into maintaining mostly separate finances. Sally's checking account showed regular deposits from her employer. Good money, $60,000 a year base plus commission. But the commission deposits had been sporadic lately, smaller than they used to be. Her credit card statement showed purchases Jesse didn't recognize. Cash advances. Large transfers to, his eyes narrowed. Transfers to an account he didn't have access to. A separate account. Why did Sally need a separate account? He dug deeper, using a private investigator database he'd subscribed to for a medical malpractice case years ago. The account was at a different bank, opened 6 months ago. Sally had been depositing money there regularly. Small amounts. $50 here, $100 there. Building something. Hiding something. Jesse's phone rang, startling him. He glanced at the screen. Louise McGee. He let it ring twice more before answering. "Hello. Jesse, dear, how's Hannah feeling?" Louise's voice was warm, maternal. The same voice that had welcomed him into the family, that had cooed over Hannah as a baby, that had taught him how to make her famous pot roast. "She's resting. Still weak, but improving." "Oh, thank goodness. Saul and I have been so worried. We wanted to come visit, bring her some soup, but Sally said you wanted to keep things quiet for a few days. Just until she's stronger. We don't want to overwhelm her." Of course. You know, I've been thinking, could this be related to something she ate? Food poisoning, maybe?" Jesse's grip tightened on the phone. "The doctors think it might be some kind of contamination. They're running tests. Well, if there's anything we can do, You just let us know. Family takes care of family, right? Right. After Louise hung up, Jesse sat motionless, his mind churning. Her call had been fishing, probing for information. She wanted to know what the doctors had found, whether they'd identified arsenic. Which meant she knew. She had to know. A knock on the office door made him quickly close the browser windows. Yeah. Hannah's voice muffled, "Dad? Can I come in?" He unlocked the door. Hannah stood in the hallway wearing sweatpants and one of his old medical school t-shirts. Her face still pale, but her eyes clearer than they'd been in days. "What's up, kiddo?" "I'm bored. Can we watch a movie or something?" "Sure." He followed her downstairs to the living room, where she curled up on the couch under a blanket. She looked so young, so vulnerable. His chest ached. They settled on a Marvel movie, something mindless and action-packed. Halfway through, Hannah spoke without looking away from the screen. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Why is everyone acting so weird? Mom keeps hovering. Grandma keeps calling. You took a whole week off work, which you never do." She finally turned to look at him. "What aren't you telling me?" Jesse debated how much to share. Hannah was 18, legally an adult. She deserved the truth. But the truth was terrifying. "The doctors think someone might have intentionally made you sick," he said carefully. Hannah blinked. "What?" "The tests showed high levels of arsenic in your blood. That doesn't happen by accident." "Arsenic? Like poison?" Her face had gone even paler. "Who would? Why would?" "We don't know yet. The police are investigating." "Oh my God." She pulled the blanket tighter around herself. "Someone tried to poison me? I'm not going to let anything happen to you. I promise." "But who? Who would do that?" Jesse hesitated. "We're not sure yet, but I need you to think back over the past few months. Did anyone give you food or drink? Did anyone have access to things you ate regularly?" Hannah's mind was clearly racing, her eyes unfocused. "I mean, lots of people. Gabriella and I share snacks. I eat at the dining hall. Grandma brings me trail mix." She stopped. "Wait, the trail mix. Is that? Maybe. We're testing it." "Grandma." Hannah's voice cracked. "Grandma Louise tried to poison me?" "We don't know that for certain. But you think so?" "Oh God. Oh God." She started hyperventilating. Jesse moved to sit beside her, pulling her into his arms. "Breathe. Deep breaths. In and out." It took several minutes for her panic to subside. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were red. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would she do that?" "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. What if they try again? What if they won't get the chance? You're safe here. I won't let anyone hurt you." But even as he said it, Jesse knew it wasn't entirely true. Because Sally was here too. Sally, who'd insisted on bringing Hannah home. Sally, who had her own secret bank account and mounting financial pressures. He'd have to watch everyone. Trust no one. That night, after Hannah went to bed, Jesse prepared. He ordered a home security camera system online, overnight delivery. He bought a small lockbox and secured all of Hannah's medications, vitamins, even her toiletries inside it. He began preparing all her meals himself, tasting everything first. He also started his own project. In the basement, away from prying eyes, he assembled supplies. Not for defense, for offense. If the police couldn't nail the McGees, Jesse would. But not through evidence and testimony. Through their own medicine. Literally. He'd studied pharmacology extensively during medical school. He knew which drugs were detectable, which weren't. He knew how to mimic natural death. Heart attacks, strokes, aneurysms. He knew how to acquire controlled substances from the hospital pharmacy without raising flags. Jesse Rankin wasn't a violent man. He'd spent his entire adult life saving people, not hurting them. But watching Hannah deteriorate, knowing someone in his own family had done this, it changed something fundamental inside him. The police investigation was moving at a crawl. Detective Harrison called Monday afternoon with an update. Preliminary tests on the trail mix showed elevated arsenic levels. Not enough to kill immediately, but enough to cause chronic poisoning over time. They questioned Louise, who'd broken down crying, insisting she had no idea how arsenic could have gotten into her homemade trail mix. Maybe contaminated nuts from the bulk bin at the grocery store? These things happened. And there was the problem. No proof of intent. No witnesses. No confession. Louise could claim ignorance. And unless they found arsenic in her house, which she could have easily disposed of by now, there was no case. We're pursuing it, Harrison assured him. But these things take time. Time Hannah might not have if they tried again. That Monday evening, Sally came home from work earlier than usual. She'd canceled her Texas conference, she said, to be with Hannah. The gesture might have touched Jesse once. Now it just made him suspicious. Sally made dinner, chicken stir-fry, one of Hannah's favorites. Jesse watched her cook, noted every ingredient she used, every spice she added. He insisted on tasting it first before letting Hannah eat. Sally had noticed, her expression tightening. "You don't trust me," she said after Hannah went upstairs. "Should I?" Jesse countered. "I'm your wife. Hannah's mother. Stepmother," Jesse corrected, and immediately regretted it. The distinction had never mattered before. Sally's face hardened. "Right. Because she's not really mine, is she? Not to you. That's not what I meant. Isn't it?" Sally grabbed her purse from the counter. "I need some air. I'll be back later." She left through the garage, and Jesse heard her car start. He immediately went to his laptop, pulling up the GPS tracking app he'd quietly installed on her phone that morning. Unethical, illegal without consent, but he was past caring about ethics. Sally's car headed south, toward her parents' house. Jesse made a decision. He called Gabriella, Hannah's roommate. "Hey, this is Hannah's dad. I need a favor." 30 minutes later, Jesse pulled up outside a coffee shop 3 blocks from the McGee house. Through the window, he could see Sally sitting at a corner table with Saul and Louise. Their heads were close together, voices low. Intense conversation. He'd parked far enough away that they wouldn't spot his car, and he'd borrowed Hannah's beat-up Honda instead of driving his own recognizable SUV. From his vantage point, he couldn't hear what they were saying, but their body language told a story. Sally gesturing emphatically, Louise wringing her hands, Saul sitting back, arms crossed, face set in hard lines. Then Sally pulled out a folder from her bag. Papers. She spread them on the table, pointing at something. Saul leaned forward to read. Even from this distance, Jesse could see his father-in-law's face go red. An argument. They were arguing about something in those papers. Jesse pulled out his phone and zoomed in with the camera, taking photos. Not admissible in court probably, but documentation nonetheless. He captured Sally pulling out what looked like bank statements, Louise crying, Saul slamming his fist on the table. The meeting lasted 20 minutes. Then Sally gathered her papers and left, her face stormy. Saul and Louise remained, Louise dabbing at her eyes with a napkin, Saul staring into his coffee cup with the expression of a man contemplating his mortality. Jesse waited until Sally's car had cleared the area before he drove away. His mind raced with questions. What were those papers? Why were they arguing? Was Sally confronting them about the poisoning? Or were they arguing about something else entirely, like how to split insurance money? When Jesse arrived home, Sally was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine. She looked up as he entered. "Where were you?" "Pharmacy. Picking up Hannah's chelation medication." The lie came easily. Sally took a long drink. "We need to talk." Jesse's pulse quickened, but he kept his face neutral. About what's been happening. About us." She gestured to the empty chair across from her. "Sit." He sat. Sally studied him for a long moment, her fingers tracing the rim of her wine glass. "I know you think I had something to do with Hannah getting sick." Jesse said nothing. "I saw you watching me cook dinner, tasting everything first. You've been treating me like a suspect." Her voice was steady, but there was hurt underneath. "Jesse, I love that girl. She's my daughter, even if she didn't come from my body. I would never hurt her." "Then why were you meeting with your parents tonight?" Sally's eyes widened. "You followed me. I tracked your phone. Answer the question." "Jesus Christ." She drained her wine glass. "You want to know what we were discussing?" "Fine. Money. We were talking about money. My parents are broke, Jesse. Completely underwater financially. They took out a second mortgage to help pay for Hannah's college, and now they can't make the payments." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I knew you'd react exactly like this. Suspicion, judgment. You've never understood what it's like to struggle financially. Your family had money. Mine didn't." She poured more wine. "I've been helping them, sending them money from that separate account you probably already found. Little amounts here and there, so you wouldn't notice. Jesse's mind reeled. This explanation made sense. But it could also be a cover story. If they needed money so badly, he said slowly, that gives them motive to poison Hannah. Insurance payout. Sally laughed, but was bitter, hollow. You really think my parents are murderers? Louise, who still makes Hannah birthday cakes from scratch. Saul, who coached her softball team for 5 years. People do terrible things when they're desperate. You want to know what we were arguing about tonight? I was confronting them about the arsenic. I asked them point blank if they'd done something to Hannah's food. They were horrified, insulted. My mother cried for 20 minutes. Sally leaned forward. They didn't do this, Jesse. I know them. They wouldn't. Then who did? I don't know. Maybe it really was contamination. Maybe the bulk nuts at the grocery store. Maybe, she stopped, something flickering across her face. What? There's someone else who's been around Hannah a lot lately. Someone she trusts. Who? Sally hesitated. Her ex-boyfriend, Todd Marshall. He's been texting her constantly, trying to get back together. She told me about it a few weeks ago. Said he was getting obsessive. Jesse hadn't known Hannah had an ex-boyfriend. But then, there was a lot about his daughter's life he didn't know. Why would he poison her? If I can't have you, nobody can? I don't know, Jesse. I'm just saying, there are other possibilities besides my parents. She stood, carrying her wine glass to the sink. I'm going to bed. You can either trust me or not. But I'm done defending myself. After she left, Jesse sat alone in the dark kitchen, his thoughts spiraling. Was Sally telling the truth? Or was this misdirection, throwing suspicion elsewhere? He pulled up his phone and Googled Todd Marshall combined with Hannah's high school. A Facebook profile popped up. Todd Marshall, 19, attended community college. His profile picture showed a lean kid with angry eyes and a barely there mustache. Recent posts were all cryptic, angsty lyrics, and vague threats about people who'd wronged him. Jesse clicked through to the friends list. Hannah was there. He scrolled through their public interactions. Todd's posts on her wall, getting increasingly desperate and bitter over the past months. I can't believe you're just throwing away what we had. You're going to regret this. You're different now. College changed you. You're not the girl I fell in love with. Red flags. Definite red flags. But was it enough to make him a poisoner? Jesse made a note to mention Todd to Detective Harrison. Another thread to pull. But in his gut, Jesse didn't believe it. This felt too calculated, too methodical for a spurned teenage boyfriend. This felt like someone older, more patient, more desperate. This felt like family. Tuesday morning, Jesse received an unexpected visitor. His mother-in-law, Louise, showed up at his door, carrying a casserole dish and wearing what could only be described as a penitent expression. Jesse, please, can we talk? Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face drawn. I couldn't sleep last night. I keep thinking about Hannah, about what happened. I need you to know. Come in. Jesse stepped aside, though every instinct told him to slam the door. Louise set the casserole on the kitchen counter. I made Hannah's favorite, chicken and rice. I thought maybe it would help her feel better. Jesse stared at the casserole like it was a live grenade. Thanks. I'll put it in the fridge. Jesse, Louise grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. You think I did this? You think I poisoned my own granddaughter? He met her eyes. Did you? No. The word came out as a wail. Never. I would die before I hurt that child. She's everything to me. Then explain the arsenic in the trail mix you made her. Louise's face crumpled. I don't know. I've been making that trail mix for years. Same ingredients, same recipe. I buy everything at the same grocery store. I don't know how it got contaminated. Contamination doesn't happen like that. Not consistently, over weeks. Then someone else put it there. Someone had access to my house, my kitchen. Maybe. She stopped, her eyes widening. Oh God. What? Saul. He's been so strange lately. Stressed about money. Making phone calls late at night. Hiding his phone when I walk in the room. I thought maybe an affair? But what if it's worse? What if he's been? She couldn't finish the sentence. Jesse studied her carefully. This could be genuine revelation. It could be her throwing Saul under the bus to save herself. Louise, if you know something, you need to tell the police. I don't know anything for certain. It's just little things. Strange things. She wrung her hands. A few months ago, I found a bottle in the garage. Some kind of chemical. I asked Saul about it, and he got angry, said it was for killing weeds. But Jesse, we don't have a garden. Why would we need weed killer? Arsenic had historically been used in herbicides. Many old brands contained it. Where's the bottle now? I don't know. I never saw it again. Jesse made a decision. Come with me. Where? To your house. Right now. We're going to search it top to bottom. Louise paled. Saul will be furious. I don't care. If you're innocent, prove it. If Saul's guilty, let's find evidence. They took Jesse's car. The drive to the McGee house took 15 minutes. Louise twisting her hands in her lap the entire time. Saul's car wasn't in the driveway. He'd taken up a part-time job at Home Depot since retiring, working the early morning shift. We have a few hours before he gets home, Louise said, unlocking the front door with trembling hands. The house was neat but dated. Furniture from the 90s, faded wallpaper, carpet worn thin in high-traffic areas. Louise led Jesse to the garage, which was cluttered with typical suburban detritus. Lawnmower, garden tools, boxes of Christmas decorations, old paint cans. They spent an hour searching. Jesse wore gloves, careful not to contaminate potential evidence. He found nothing in the obvious places. Then, in the back corner behind a stack of paint cans, he spotted something. A small cardboard box, taped shut. What's this? He asked Louise. I've never seen that before. Jesse used a box cutter to slice the tape. Inside, wrapped in newspaper, was a plastic bottle. The label had been partially torn off, but Jesse could still read arsenic trioxide in faded letters. Below it, in smaller print, warning, poison. His blood ran cold. Oh my God, Louise whispered. Oh my God, Saul, what did you do? Jesse photographed the box, the bottle, the location. Evidence. Finally, solid evidence. We need to call Detective Harrison right now. But even as he pulled out his phone, Jesse's mind was racing ahead. This bottle proved Saul had access to arsenic, but it didn't prove intent. Saul could claim he'd bought it years ago for pest control, forgotten about it. And with the label mostly torn off, who could prove when it was purchased? Unless. Jesse looked at the newspaper wrapping. He carefully unfolded it. The paper was yellowed, but intact. He checked the date. October 15th of this year. 2 months ago. That's from recently, Louise said, reading over his shoulder. Saul saved that newspaper. I remember because it had an article about his old football team winning state finals. Recent purchase. Recent concealment. This was damning. Jesse called Harrison, who arrived within 30 minutes with a forensics team. They photographed everything, bagged the evidence, took statements from both Jesse and Louise. This is good, Harrison said to Jesse outside, away from Louise. This gives us probable cause. We could get a warrant for financial records, phone records, everything. If your father-in-law did this, we'll nail him. How long? Few days for the warrant. Then we start building the case. Could be weeks before we're ready to make an arrest. Weeks. Weeks during which Saul would know they were onto him. Weeks during which he could flee, destroy evidence, or, God forbid, try something desperate. Jesse couldn't wait weeks. He had to act now. That evening, after ensuring Hannah was safely locked in her room with strict instructions not to eat or drink anything he hadn't personally prepared, Jesse went down to the basement. He'd done more research over the past few days. He'd learned that arsenic wasn't the only poison that could mimic natural causes. There were others, more sophisticated, harder to detect. Drugs that caused heart attacks, aneurysms, strokes, all available in a hospital pharmacy if you knew how to access them without triggering alarms. Jesse had worked at County General for 12 years. He knew the systems, the protocols, the gaps. He pulled out a notebook and began a plan. Not just Saul's downfall, his death. Because prison wasn't enough. Not for what he'd done to Hannah. Not for the weeks of fear and pain he'd inflicted on an innocent girl. No, Saul McGee needed to die. And it needed to look natural. A heart attack, maybe. Saul was 68, overweight, stressed. Nobody would question it. The question was how to deliver the dose. Jesse couldn't just inject him. He'd need Saul to ingest something or be exposed somehow. He'd need access. An idea formed. Dark. Risky. But possible. Jesse would invite Saul and Louise over for dinner. A peace offering, a chance to clear the air before the police formally charged Saul. Sally would be there too. Jesse would need her cooperation, or at least her presence to make it seem legitimate. During dinner, Jesse would dose Saul's food or drink with something fast-acting. Potassium chloride, maybe. In high enough doses, it caused cardiac arrest. And, if administered orally, it was nearly undetectable post-mortem unless you specifically tested for it. Saul would collapse during dinner. Jesse, the ER doctor, would attempt resuscitation but fail. Tragic. An unexpected heart attack. These things happened, especially in older men with stress and financial problems. The symmetry of it appealed to Jesse. Saul had used poison to attack Hannah. Jesse would use medicine, perverted into poison, to attack Saul. The poisoner poisoned. The killer killed. Justice, delivered by the hand of the man who'd sworn to do no harm. Jesse knew he was crossing a line. He'd become what he hated, but he couldn't stop himself. The rage was too deep, the betrayal too complete. He would kill Saul McGee, and he'd get away with it. The invitation went out Wednesday morning. Jesse called Sally first. "I want to have your parents over for dinner this weekend," he said. "Clear the air. Let them see Hannah is okay." Sally was skeptical. "After everything? You think it's a good idea?" "I think we need closure. The police are investigating, but in the meantime, we're family. We need to deal with this as family. Jesse, my father is going to be arrested for attempted murder. We don't know that. Maybe it really was contamination. Maybe Louise is right about the bulk bins. The lies came easily now. I just think, for Hannah's sake, we should try to find peace. Even if it's just for one night." Sally was quiet for a long time. "Okay, but if this goes badly, it won't. I promise." Next, Jesse called Louise. She answered on the first ring, her voice hopeful and terrified all at once. "Jesse, Louise, I want you and Saul to come to dinner Saturday night. 6 o'clock. "Oh, Jesse, I don't know if that's a good idea. Saul's been. He knows the police searched the house. He's been drinking, saying angry things. I need to see him, face to face. We need to talk this through as men. I'm not sure he'll come. Tell him I'm willing to listen. Tell him I want to hear his side." Jesse paused. "Tell him this is his chance to clear his name." Louise agreed to try. That afternoon, she called back. Saul had agreed to dinner. Jesse spent the next 3 days preparing. He requisitioned potassium chloride from the hospital pharmacy using a fake patient chart. Easy enough when you had administrative access and knew how to cover your tracks. He researched dosages, delivery methods, detection risks. 50 milliequivalents in solution, administered in food or drink, would cause hyperkalemia, elevated potassium leading to cardiac arrest. The symptoms would start within 30 minutes. Nausea, weakness, irregular heartbeat, then cardiac arrest. If Jesse attempted resuscitation but deliberately botched it, Saul would die before the paramedics arrived. And afterward, if the coroner even bothered to test for potassium levels, which they wouldn't in an apparent natural death, the results would be inconclusive. Potassium occurred naturally in the body. High levels could be explained by post-mortem changes. It was perfect. Saturday evening arrived. Sally had spent the day cooking, prime rib, roasted vegetables, garlic mashed potatoes. Hannah helped, though she was still weak, her movements slow. She'd improved significantly with the chelation therapy, but the trauma lingered in her eyes. "Are you sure about this, Dad?" she asked privately while they set the table. "Having them here? I need to see Grandpa, Saul," Jesse said. "I need to look him in the eye. What if he tries something?" "He won't. Not with all of us here." Jesse squeezed her shoulder. "Trust me." The doorbell rang at exactly 6. Jesse answered, coming face to face with Saul McGee for the first time since that night in the ER. His father-in-law looked haggard, his face drawn and pale, his eyes bloodshot. "Jesse." Saul's voice was gravelly. "Saul, come in." Louise followed, carrying a pie. "I know you said not to bring anything, but I couldn't come empty-handed." Jesse took the pie, apple from the smell, and immediately set it aside, untouched. No chances. Dinner was awkward. Conversation stilted. Hannah barely looked at her grandparents. Sally tried to keep things light, talking about work, the weather, anything but the elephant in the room. Jesse watched Saul the entire time. Watched him cut his prime rib. Watched him drink his wine. Watched him check his phone twice, his fingers trembling. The potassium chloride was in Jesse's pocket, dissolved in a small vial. He just needed the right moment. Just needed Saul to turn away, to use the bathroom, something, but the moment didn't come. Saul never left his seat, never gave Jesse an opening. And then, halfway through dinner, Saul spoke. "I know what you're thinking," he said, his voice loud in the quiet room. "All of you. You think I poisoned Hannah." The table fell silent. "Saul," Louise whispered. "Don't. No. We need to talk about this." Saul set down his fork, his hands shaking. "Jesse, I swear to you, on my life, on everything I hold sacred, I did not poison your daughter. I love that girl. I would never hurt her." "Then explain the arsenic in the trail mix," Jesse said coldly. "I can't. I don't know how it got there, but I didn't put it there. And the bottle in your garage? That," Saul's face flushed. "That was for killing ants. We had an infestation last summer. I bought Awesome Guy online. I know I should have disposed of it properly, but I forgot about it. Convenient. It's the truth." Saul's voice rose. "Why would I hurt Hannah? What possible reason?" "Money," Jesse said. "The insurance policy." "You're broke, Saul. Underwater. You needed cash." Saul's face went from red to white. "You think I'd murder my granddaughter for money? What kind of monster?" "The desperate kind." Saul stood abruptly, his chair scraping back. "I'm not listening to this." "Louise, we're leaving." "No." Jesse stood too. "You're not going anywhere. Not until you tell me the truth." "Jesse." Sally tried to intervene, but Jesse ignored her. "Did you poison her?" Jesse demanded. "Did you put arsenic in that trail mix? Yes or no?" "No." "Then who did?" Jesse stepped closer. "Because someone did. Someone systematically poisoned my daughter for weeks. If it wasn't you, then who?" The room held its breath. And then Louise spoke, her voice small. "I did." Everyone turned to stare at her. Louise stood, tears streaming down her face, her body trembling. "It was me," she said. "I poisoned Hannah." "Louise, no." Saul reached for her, but she stepped back. "I did it. I put the arsenic in the trail mix." Her voice was hollow, defeated. "I've been doing it since September." Jesse's mind went blank. Not Saul. Louise. Sweet, nurturing Louise who'd welcomed him into the family, who'd taught Hannah to bake cookies, who'd never said an unkind word to anyone. "Why?" Hannah's voice cracked. "Grandma, why?" Louise looked at her granddaughter, and something in her face was broken, twisted. "Because Saul was going to leave me." Silence. "He'd met someone," Louise continued, her words tumbling out now. "Some woman at Home Depot. Younger, prettier. He was going to divorce me, take half of everything. I'd end up with nothing after 40 years of marriage. Nothing. Mom." Sally's face was stricken. "That's not. Dad wouldn't." "He would. He told me. 3 months ago, he sat me down and told me he didn't love me anymore. That he wanted a fresh start." Louise's laugh was bitter. A fresh start at 68. Can you imagine? Saul's face had gone ashen. "Louise, I never meant. I was confused, stressed about money." "Don't." Louise held up a hand. "Don't you dare make excuses now." Jesse's mind was reeling. Try to process this. But why Hannah? Why hurt Hannah? Because if she died, there'd be insurance money. $250,000. Sally, and you would get it, and Sally would help me. She'd help her mother survive the divorce. Louise looked at her daughter. "You would, wouldn't you? You'd take care of me." Sally stood, her chair crashing backward. "You think I'd take blood money? You think I'd help you after you tried to murder my daughter?" "She's not your daughter," Louise screamed. "She's some other woman's child that you inherited. You never even wanted kids. You told me that. You said having Hannah was a burden, that she tied you down." "Mom, stop." But Louise couldn't stop. The words poured out like poison from a lanced wound. "I did this for you. For us. So we'd have something after Saul abandoned me. So we wouldn't be destitute. I did this because I'm your mother and I was trying to protect our future." Jesse moved faster than he'd known he could move. He was across the room, grabbing Louise by the shoulders. "You poisoned my daughter. You slowly killed her for months because your husband wanted a divorce." "Jesse, let her go." Saul tried to pull him off, but Jesse shoved him back. "She deserves to die. Jesse growled. She deserves to suffer the way Hannah suffered. Dad, stop. Hannah's voice cut through the chaos. Dad, please. Jesse looked at his daughter. She was crying, her face pale and terrified. And in that moment, looking at her, Jesse remembered who he was. Not a killer, not a poisoner, a father, a doctor. He released Louise, who crumpled to the floor, sobbing. Sally, call 911, Jesse said, his voice steady now. Tell them to send police and an ambulance. Sally fumbled for her phone with shaking hands. Jesse looked down at Louise McGee, this woman who'd welcomed him into her family, who'd smiled and cooked and pretended to love Hannah while slowly poisoning her. And he felt nothing. No rage, no grief, just cold, empty clarity. The police will be here soon, he said. I suggest you start thinking about how you're going to explain this to them. But Louise just kept crying, curled up on the floor, broken and pathetic. The police arrived within 10 minutes. Detective Harrison took Louise into custody, reading her rights while she wept. Saul stood in the corner, his face buried in his hands. Whether from shock or shame, Jesse couldn't tell. Harrison pulled Jesse aside. The arsenic bottle we found in the garage, was that hers? Must have been. She probably planted it to frame Saul if things went south. Hell of a frame job. She put her own husband in the crosshairs. Harrison shook his head. You gotta wonder what kind of person does that. A desperate one, Jesse said. After everyone left, the police, the paramedics who checked Hannah's vitals, even Saul, who'd been allowed to go home pending further investigation, Jesse sat with his daughter and Sally in the living room. I'm sorry, Sally said finally. I should have known. She's my mother. I should have seen. You couldn't have known, Jesse said. None of us could. She tried to kill Hannah for insurance money and spite. Sally's voice broke. What kind of monster? Don't. Hannah spoke up, her voice firm despite the tears. Don't try to make sense of it. Some things don't make sense. Some people are just broken. They sat in silence for a while. Finally, Sally stood. I'm going to make tea. Anyone want some? They both shook their heads. After Sally left the room, Hannah turned to Jesse. Dad, can I ask you something? Anything. Were you really going to do it? Kill Grandpa Saul. Jesse's breath caught. How did you? I saw the vial in your pocket. At dinner. I know what potassium chloride does. She fixed him with a steady gaze. Were you going to kill him? Jesse wanted to lie, but he owed her the truth. Yes. Why didn't you? Because of you. Looking at you, I remembered who I was. Who I wanted to be. He took her hand. I wanted justice. But that's not justice. That's just revenge. I'm glad you didn't do it. Hannah squeezed his hand. I'm glad you're still you. They sat together in the quiet house, and Jesse felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Hannah would recover. The poison was out of her system. Louise would face trial, likely spend the rest of her life in prison. And Jesse? Jesse would remain what he'd always been, a doctor, a father, a good man. Even if, for a moment there, he'd almost become something else entirely. The trial took 6 months. Louise McGee pleaded not guilty, claiming temporary insanity brought on by the stress of her impending divorce and financial ruin. Her lawyer painted her as a desperate woman driven to extremes by abandonment and fear. The jury didn't buy it. They convicted her of attempted murder, conspiracy, and assault with a deadly weapon. The judge sentenced her to 25 years in state prison. Saul McGee filed for divorce while Louise awaited sentencing. He moved to Arizona, cut off all contact with the family. Jesse heard through Sally that he'd remarried, a woman he'd met online, someone who knew nothing about the McGee family's dark history. Sally stayed. She and Jesse went to marriage counseling, worked through their issues. It turned out she'd been distant not because she was plotting anything, but because she'd been depressed, struggling with her job, feeling like a failure as both a wife and a mother. The therapy helped. They were rebuilding slowly. Hannah recovered fully. The chelation therapy worked, flushing the arsenic from her system. She returned to college in the spring semester, though she switched dorms and got a new roommate. She also started seeing a therapist, working through the trauma of being poisoned by her own grandmother. I have trust issues now, she joked to Jesse once. Like serious trust issues. That's understandable, Jesse had said. But I trust you, Dad. I always trust you. That meant more than she could possibly know. On a Saturday in April, Jesse sat in his backyard watching Hannah help Sally plant tomatoes in the garden. The spring sun was warm, the air full of birdsong. Hannah laughed at something Sally said, and the sound was like music. Jesse's phone buzzed. A text from Detective Harrison. Thought you'd want to know. Louise McGee tried to poison another inmate last week. She's been moved to solitary. Guess some people never learn. Jesse deleted the text without responding. He didn't want to think about Louise McGee anymore. Didn't want to give her space in his mind. He'd almost become a killer because of her. Almost poisoned Saul the way she'd poisoned Hannah. But he pulled back from that edge. He'd chosen to be better. That was the thing about darkness Jesse had learned. It was always there, always waiting. The capacity for evil lived inside everyone, dormant but never dead. The difference between good people and bad people wasn't the absence of darkness. It was the choice to walk toward the light anyway. Jesse had made his choice. And looking at Hannah now, healthy and laughing and alive, he knew it was the right one. Some wounds healed, some scars faded, and some families, broken by betrayal and poison, found ways to mend. Not whole again, never whole again, but functional, surviving. And sometimes that was enough. Dad, Hannah called from the garden. Come help us plant these tomatoes. Jesse stood, brushing off his jeans. Coming. He walked across the grass, toward his family, toward the future, toward whatever came next. The past was behind him now, locked away in a prison cell and buried in the ground. Only the future remained. And the future, for once, looked bright. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.